talk a little bit about flow benches, flow work today. I just want to say also, everybody, this is Tech Talk Tuesday number 5. We've been doing this 5 weeks in a row now, so this is pretty cool. Very thankful for the support and the people that follow, and then how much we watch. Folks watch my videos even after they are live. Again, I'm saving these so that we can share these on YouTube. So I'm saving those videos, these sessions or episodes, I guess we'll call them. But it's because of you guys that I'm able to do this. If there wasn't very many people watching, I wouldn't even worry about it. But I have this in my heart to share the 40, 50 years of experience that we've learned over these years. Because I'll be 65 Friday. Got a lot of information. I've been working on this every day since I was a teenager. So this is not like a new plan for me. This is not a new life. This is my same old life. I've been doing this for all this while. Also, I'm going to be absolutely natural here. I'm going to act like you all are just standing in here in the cylinder head room with me. I'm not going to be putting on any kind of face, and my nose turns red and it starts itching and I start sneezing or whatever. But deal with it, because this is live, and I'm being live right now, unrehearsed. I'm going to make mistakes. Thanks for the happy birthday early, guys. Also, I want you to know that the stuff I'm going to tell you is not really in a book or on the internet. This is information that's been self-taught and learned, and just the 5 of us here at Star Racing, Star Power, doesn't represent what is housed and stored here. Listen to me, folks. We've had probably 15 people at a time working here when we were a big professional race team where we worked on research and development every day for years. We got paid by large corporations to win races and to learn how to make our engines really fast. And we've been using that information to translate over to street bikes and street Harleys, and now these drag racing versions of the baggers, which is a real passion for me, and I would love to help that grow. Like I said, this is my opinion. This is the stuff that we've learned here at Star Racing. Randall Welch and Ron Reese and Monica and Maggie and Jackie and I, we're the ones that are left right now, so there's a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of information here that, like I said, is not in a book. So I'm going to start off, and I'm not going to necessarily be in the picture, but as you can see, we have a 1020 Superflow. I think this is one of the biggest flow benches you can get. We've had it since they first came out as one of the newest ones. When I say that, it's a very low serial number when they came out. We had the 110 to 300 to 600, and we always wanted more and more power from our flow bench. And the reason why is because the engine is asking for more air than a flow bench can give it. So a flow bench is just a tool. It is not the end-all, be-all. We don't use it a lot in our advertising. We don't use it a lot in our day-to-day work, because once we get the valve seat shapes right and the numbers right for our valves and our port size and our manifold size, and the little port on the Harley is so short. It's so short. I mean, an intake port is only that long, right there. It's hard to screw it up. Once you get this part right, you get this part right, it's only this long. So it flows what it needs to flow based on its size. And I have an example here. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, and it doesn't matter if you can, because I'm going to read it to you. But this is flow charts from a Milwaukee 8, 2017 through 2020. The new twin cam, the new Milwaukee 8, the 4-valve head that Harley is selling everybody now. The twin cam engines are done. They finished those in 2016, and a few were left in the 110 cubic inch area. But our first chart is a bone stock port with the bone stock 40 millimeter intake valve. And I'm going to do only intake flow today. Exhaust flow is another whole story, which we'll do another time. Then we have our Thrasher, 1 millimeter over valve on the intake. And then we have our Pro port with the 45 millimeter intake. The amazing thing is, on the 4 valves, is how much these heads flow at 100 lift. A good one flows 90 to 100 CFM at 100 lift. That is crazy. 200, 200. 200 lift, 200 flow. 300 lift, 300 flow. 400 lift, 350 flow. 500 lift, 370 flow. 600 lift, 385. That's the most we've made, and we're doing it with a little orifice, and I'm going to tell you about it. This little orifice right here, teeny weeny little float piece. It's 1/880 across here, 1/880. That's what size we do the heads, the twin cams and the Milwaukee 8s. We port them that size, and HPI sells really nice throttle bodies and manifolds to fit that stuff. What's interesting about this, at 28 inches on the flow bench, this piece right here will flow 411 CFM, okay? So this doesn't interfere with our development on the cylinder head. Now, a lot of our competition and a lot of friends are worried about what the whole system flows, and I understand the system, the cylinder head, the intake manifold, and then the throttle body, and then the air cleaner. That whole system is what really matters when you're going to operate the motorcycle on the street, touring, riding, or even on the drag strip. That whole system matters. But the way Star Racing does it is we develop the cylinder head to be the best it can be through a known orifice. This fits on the twin cams and the Milwaukee 8s, okay? That is our little benchmark standard. Then once we get that going and get the most flow we can through the cylinder head, then we'll put the intake manifold on and make sure it is supporting the cylinder head as far as flow and not inhibiting it. Then we'll do the throttle body, make sure it's good, and then we'll do the air cleaner. And I have an example of one of our thrashers right here for the twin cam. This is our typical 1900, 1700 that we do on the 107s. You can see a big difference: 58 at 100 lift, 129 at 200 lift, 192 at 300 lift, 239 at 400 lift, and at 500 is 257. Well, when we put the whole system through the manifold, through the throttle body, we went at 500. We went from 257 to 242. So there's a percentage loss there. But listen, when you're going through these low lifts, under 200, 300, 400, there's not much of a loss there because the air cleaner is not an obstruction. The throttle body is not an obstruction at those low lifts. And I made me some notes again. We flow at 28 inches depression, and some people flow at 10 inches, some people flow at 20 inches, some people flow at whatever their flow bench will go. On our pro stock engines that were flowing 650 to 700 CFM, we had to have a bench bigger than all of those. We had to have this 1020 so we could pull enough depression through a port and a valve so big that we could actually learn something. And let me explain to you why. Engine demand, okay. Crankshaft, the intake valve, and the cam timing. The only reason on a normally aspirated engine, which 99% of us are, I'm not talking about turbo, supercharged, I'm talking about normally aspirated engine. 99% of our customers this will make sense to them. The barometer, the barometric pressure outside is what makes the air go in the engine. That's it. The pistons at the top, intake valve opens, piston starts going down. That depression of the piston going down with the intake valve open is filled by atmosphere. If it's 2950 where you are today, and you turn your engine over and the piston goes down to bottom and the intake valve is open, the only reason air goes in that engine is because a 29.5 barometer filled it. So as fast as you can move a piston down, the atmosphere will rush in through the intake port and fill it. It's not a suction from the engine. It's not suction from the engine. People think when you run the piston down that it creates vacuum on it. That's because a flow bench runs off big vacuum cleaner engines, big vacuum electric motors. But the atmosphere is what fills the cylinder. So that's why when you go to Denver to race or somewhere at high altitude, the barometer is 23, 24, makes way less horsepower. So the correction factor is really big at Denver, for instance, compared to here. Here it's only 500 or 600 feet sea level, so we have 2950 barometer, whereas Denver may have 2350 barometer. So we can make, on a pro stock motorcycle engine, we can make almost 50 more horsepower in Georgia than we can in Denver. So that's why they run so much slower. The barometer filling the engine. Okay, this, let me tell you why this is important. When the piston's at top dead center, the crankshaft's at TDC, the rods are straight up, and there's nothing going on. So your flow bench, if your engine was a flow bench, it would be asking for zero air to go through the engine. There's nothing going on. Piston stop, crank stop, rod straight. As soon as the crank goes over center, the rod's following, and the piston goes down, the piston starts going faster and faster. The piston goes the fastest at 77 degrees after top dead center. Okay, you can do math. You can find it at 75 after top with some stroke and rod combination. You can find it at 79 degrees after top with some stroke and rod combinations. But almost all engines are right between 75 and 80 after top dead center. 75 to 80 degrees after top dead center. That's when the engine's demand is the greatest on the cylinder head. And it's so much demand right there. There is not a flow bench on the market that can simulate that. So I'm frustrated with flow benches because they only tell me 1 second of the story. They don't tell me the other 59 seconds of the minute. They don't tell me the other 59 minutes of an hour. They only tell me one small piece of the story, and that's what is the depression at the intake valve when that piston goes down the engine with a 28 inches of test pressure. All of these right here, all of these were done at 28 inches. That's what we set the flow bench at. We're pulling 28 on the stock head, we're pulling 28 inches on the Thrasher head, and we're pulling 28 inches on the Pro head. Difference is 40 millimeter, 41 millimeter, and 45 millimeter. This head right here takes all bigger seats put in it so we can run bigger titanium valves. All right. This is the important part about the whole story to me. As at 300 lift and at 400 lift, the stock head's pulling 255 and 296. That's more airflow than we get on our twin cam Thrasher kit, a stock Milwaukee 8 head. So if everything was, if it's a 107 engine, if we did, our Thrasher kits, we sell 107 engines and they sell really good for us, and we make 125 to 130 horsepower out of that. So given how good the head flows on an M8, if we did a good job with the camshaft, we did a good job with the exhaust, we did a good job with the throttle body and the intake, we could also make 125 to 130 with a 107 Milwaukee 8 because the heads flow more than the twin cam. Now, how do we make a twin cam head like Baxilla and like these B2 S&S heads flow more than a Milwaukee 8? Well, the way we do it is how big the port is, how big the manifold is, how big the flange area is, how big the throttle body is, and the manifold is big, okay, and the valve is huge. It takes a lot bigger valve and a lot more lift to equal a 4-valve with small valves, 2 small valves and low lift. It's all measurable, and I've tried to explain curtain area to several people this weekend. Curtain area is the circumference of the valve times the lift of the valve creates a little cylinder, and I visualize a little shower curtain going around here, and the curtain area is the length of the curtain and the circumference of the curtain times the lift. So if you got a lot of lift, or a little bit lift, or a lot of lift, if you have a lot of lift, the curtain area gets taller, and the bigger the valve, the curtain area gets bigger, so the curtain area goes up. On a Pro Stock Suzuki engine that's running right now, I see where if Jerry's running a regular Jerry Savoy's running a regular Vance and Hines 2-valve head, he's probably running a 49 or a 50 millimeter intake valve near 700 lift. Well, that curtain area of that valve at that lift is equal to what Mitch Brown is making with small intake valves and only 500 lift. Now, when Mitch puts 36s, when he puts 37s in and we put 500 lift in it, it flows more air because it has more curtain area and it has more area for air to go in the engine when the piston demand asks for it at the RPM it asks for it. I think it would take a 750 lift Vance and Hines 2-valve head with 52 or 53 millimeter intake valves to match that little monster head that has the 37s at 500 lift. So when people, the people that don't really know about curtain area and don't really know about the difference between 2 valves and 4 valves, is they don't understand how much area we increase by just opening that valve, 2 of them, 100, 200, 300, 400. The curtain area goes huge in a big hurry. That's why you see our ProPort pick up almost 100 CFM at every 100 lift. From 100 to almost 100, then it goes 200, then it goes 300. And then it starts backing off once we nose over. 400 to 350, 500 to 370, 600 to 385. But these big ones where it's going 100 to 100, 100 to 100, every 100 lift it gets another 100 CFM. That is crazy flow. So you have to be very careful with a camshaft on a 4 valve, just like you do on a 2 valve. So we started working on 4 valve engines here at Star in 1980. So we've had, I don't know how many years that is, it's 38, 39 years of learning about 4 valves. And what a 4 valve engine has done for us as a team and for our knowledge is it showed us the benchmark of what's possible with airflow. So when we work on, when the rules say you got to have a 2 valve, or the street bike Harleys come with 2 valves, or the pro stockers have to run a 2 valve, even with the Buell, the Harley, the I guess the whatever that new S&S engine, those are limited to have 2 valves, and the only way we can make those run is to put tons of lift and the biggest valve we can get in there. Our pro stock 2-cylinder, the V-twin, had a 2800 intake valve, and we were running 1-inch 200 lift. 1-inch 800 intake valve and 1-inch 200 lift. Let me show you a valve. I'll grab one. Oh well, I don't see it sitting out. My bad. Back to my notes. Okay, so what lift are we at when we're at peak piston demand, peak engine demand? What lift we're at? At 77 degrees after top dead center. Well, we should be somewhere near 80% of valve lift. In other words, if you got a 1-inch valve, 1-inch cam, you need to be near 800, 750, 800 to where your valve would be open versus peak piston speed. Why do we need? Why do we have a lift, peak lift, way after our engine demand? Is because there is a lag, there's a time limit, there's a delay. It's inertia that the column of air comes in trying to follow the piston. Another thing about that is the degree wheel here. I'm going to try and help this make sense to you a little bit. And I hope that the words are more straight or turned around, because I used a little magic wand that's got me real goofed up on this way. But it looks like the right letters are, the correct spelling showing instead of everything backwards. Did you know that race car spelled backwards is race car? I know, I found that out too. That's amazing. One of those things. 77 after top. Right here, can y'all see this okay? Top dead center, piston goes down, 77 after top. That's when peak piston speed is. Another thing that's amazing is your lobe center is at peak lift. The lobe center is at peak lift. Some of you guys know that, but some of you don't. It's like voodoo. Here's a 250 duration cam. It opens at 20 before top dead center. It's open. Here's peak piston speed. Here's peak lift. This is a 105 lobe center. Then we go all the way around to 50 after bottom, and that's where the valve closes. So 180 degrees plus 50 plus this 20. You add all those numbers together, it gives you 250 degrees duration. Okay? Valve opens here. Valve opens, peak. Now the valve starts closing, and then piston stops, and then it keeps going till 50 after, which makes it a 250. Opens at 20, closes at 50, it's 250 duration, I think it is. I didn't do the math perfect, but that's just off the top of my head. Hope y'all can hear me okay. But notice when the piston stops, you would think that the demand on the cylinder head, the engine demand on the cylinder head would stop when the piston stops. But guess what? It's got so much column of inertia coming in through the intake port that when the piston stops, that air is still coming, and then the engine keeps turning, and it keeps filling, and then right when it fills all the way up, you want to close the intake valve. That creates inertia, supercharging, and a little bit of stuffing it fuller than 100% volumetric efficiency. Another thing, I made these two little marks right here. This is peak valve lift. Let me see if I can get it in front of the camera. This is peak valve lift right here. That's the lobe center of the intake cam. I think that's 105. That cam is 105 center line. Everybody's heard of that before, and everybody's been reading and hearing about the intake closing number at 50 after bottom. Okay? Turn it around the right way. Opens. Peak piston speed over here. Peak lift, which is our lobe center, and then intake valve closing. All right. These two marks right here are important to me because right here, right between here and here, I got the most engine demand going on. That's 77 after top all the way around here to 135 after top. That's a little bit before peak lift and a little bit after peak lift. I hope that makes sense to you. So one thing that's really important to us is having great flow during that time, and that's not always full lift. You need to flow good at 300, 400, 500 lift. If you have a 500 lift cam, for sure you got to do good at 300 and 400. If you have a 600 lift cam, you got to for sure do good at 400 and 500, because the lift is not only on the opening, it is also, it's not only when the valve is opening, it is also important because, listen, when we flow bench test, people always see you're opening the valve, gain and flow, opening the valve, gain and flow, open the valve, gain and flow. But also when you get to peak lift, that cam and that engine is still going, still getting flow, and then you keep going and then it closes, then you keep going and it closes, and you keep going and it closes. So the valve, when the engine is asking for airflow, it goes all the way in until the piston stops, it keeps coming in, and then you try to time it through trial and error to shut the valve right when it fills up. All right. Peak lift is at lobe center. Remember that. You want to be about 80% of peak lift at peak piston speed. And all engines have peak piston speed between 75 and 80 after top. Static time versus dynamic time. On our flow bench, we're flowing at 28 inches, straight, steady state. Just turn it on, it's just going wah, like a jet, and you're just opening the valve, and it's just more air's going in, you're opening the valve, more air's going in. But listen, when it's running and the piston's going up and down 100 times a second, the intake valve's opening and closing, open, closing. This whole action's going in and out, in and out, in and out, because it is not a it is not a steady state deal. It is so dynamic. So when it's running, the air goes in, and then when the piston comes back up, it'll fill and back out. So, and this is only good, you guys. The camshaft is only good for 1 RPM. And I'm sorry about you. I see some of my cam people on here. I see Lori and some other people. I see my valve people from a couple different valve companies on here. I'm so thankful for you guys watching, but I want to tell you, when Lori says this cam is made for this RPM range, she knows what she's talking about. Because if you want it to make peak power at 9,000 RPM or 7,000 RPM, it ain't going to run that good at low RPM. Just can't. If you want it to make peak power at 3,000 RPM, it is not going to run that good at high RPM, because you're going to need to continually adjust this closing number. You want it to close soon for low RPM engines, and you want it to close late for high RPM engines. Our Pro Stop V-twins, our S&S V-twins, we were closing the intake valve up here around 80. Look how much further later we were closing it. We were running that engine at 10,000 RPM, and some of the Suzukis at 13,000 RPM, they're closing, also trying to close it between 70 and 80 after bottom. That's crazy. But on a street engine like this, like a Milwaukee 8, a new Milwaukee 8, I think it has little baby cams in it, like 200 degrees duration, maybe 190 degrees duration. So that means it doesn't even open before TDC, and it closes way over here by the bottom. Really short duration. It's made to operate at really low RPM. Why do we open the valve so early? Our Pro Stocker opened at 30. Our Fast Harleys open at 20. Why do we open it before TDC when there's no action going on? It's a great question. It's so we will have enough flow when we get to peak piston speed. when we get, so this we got to give it a head start. If the cam's going to start opening the valve here, you got to give it time to get all the way to full lift by here or by here. The lobe center, excuse me, lobe center. Here's the lobe center. You want it to, you got to open it here to get it here. If you waited till the flow bench or the engine started asking for demand here at TDC or slightly after, it wouldn't be full lift until way around here, and then that means it would have closing way over here, so it would run so bad. It's a compromise, y'all. Even the best camshaft in the world is a compromise. It's only good for 1 RPM. And when I say 1, I'm not talking about like 1, but I'm talking about like we have camshafts that work great. They make peak power between 5,000 and 6,000. We got ones that make power between 7,000 and 8,000. We got cams that make power 3,000 to 4,000. You have to be specific in your goals in order to help someone help you pick out the right cam. You got to help them help you. All right, why is more lift needed on a 2-valve? Well, the curtain area story I told you. In order for it to match how much area is needed to fill the engine when the piston goes down and the atmosphere fills the engine, it's going to take a big intake valve and a lot of lift to give it some area to go in there. A 4-valve needs less lift because it has twice as many valves. Maybe they're small, but in combination of the lift versus the diameter, they have so much area. We call it curtain area. That curtain area doesn't take as much valve size, and it doesn't take as much lift to outrun the 2-valve with a big valve and a lot of lift. It's a lot to digest. I'm sure I skipped over a bunch of stuff. Please ask questions. Please send me PMs, send me real time, whatever. I'm gonna save this video, this episode, and I'm gonna move it over to my Facebook page so that you can review it again. And also I'm gonna save the episode so that when I do my YouTube page, I'm gonna put all of them. But this is Tech Talk Tuesday with George, number 5. And these are only my ideas, okay? I'm not challenging my competitors. I'm not challenging the camshaft people or the valve people or the cylinder head people. There are some people out there that are peers and competitors of mine that do outstanding work, y'all. Outstanding. Yes, I see a couple more questions popping up, but look, I've been 30 minutes already, y'all. I can't keep doing this. I'm into supper time for the folks over here that live over here in the hurricane areas, and then it's just still work time for the people that live over in the mudslides and the fires. And I'm trying to please everybody in between. Hurricanes, mudslides, and fires, and in the middle it looks like tornadoes and stuff. So everybody's got, there's a lot going on. I love sharing this information. It's a gift from God to have this to share. I'm not trying to do a commercial. I'm not trying to prove I'm right. I'm just offering information that I don't read anywhere and I don't see it. So I'm going to try and share all I can given the time I have. And please, everybody, racing is great. We race so we can learn, all right? And we're learning really fast, and I'm very thankful for it. But look, everybody, we're in America, and we have to, let's help each other. We don't like everybody, I understand, but we need to help each other. There's a lot of trouble going on around here, and I just want to say that we should be thankful that we do live in a place where we can actually go on the internet and tell stories like this and tell information like this and share information like this and not be shut down by our government yet. Please, everybody, take care of each other, support each other.